At the heart of the new Swift is an all-new 3-cylinder engine. Now, since it has lost one cylinder, a lot of you think that it has lost its buttery smooth character that the Swift was known for. However, what Maruti Suzuki has to tell us is that this is one of the best engines that they have made. It is smoother, it has better thermal efficiency, it has better fuel efficiency. Heck, what they're telling us is that this is even better in terms of acceleration, lower end torque. And is all of that true? Should you be buying this car, and how exactly does it feel from behind the steering wheel? They have also made changes to the suspension, and that really is at the heart of the matter for me, because all the cosmetic changes and everything else can be wrapped in maybe 2 minutes. However, what really matters is how the new engine has affected the character of the new Swift. I'm going to find out everything, and if you're willing to buy this car, you should watch this review end to end, because you're going to get some insights, some really detailed insights which you're not going to get anywhere else. Let's get going with this. Now, before I start driving this car, I need to tell you a few important things about the changes that have been made to this engine. According to Maruti Suzuki, this has the best thermal efficiency of all such engines that they have produced. It gets an electric water pump, it gets an optimized intake port shape, it gets a lambda airflow sensor, and it also gets a high porosity catalyst. The acceleration, according to Maruti Suzuki, is better by 10%. And it also offers 3.5% better low-end torque. The aerodynamic efficiency of the car is also better, and it now slips through air a lot better. And of course, the fuel efficiency too is up, and all of this also has had some serious bearings on the fuel efficiency, which is up by a very appreciable margin. And the manual version of this car, the 5-speed manual transmission, gives you an ARAI certified fuel efficiency of 24.8 kmpl, which is really good, and the AMT surpasses that with an efficiency figure of 25.75 kmpl. Time now to test whether all of those claims are true. Alright, so we are seated behind the steering wheel of the new Maruti Suzuki Swift with the Z series engine, and the first question that you would probably want the answer to is whether this engine is as smooth as the engine that it replaces. Listen to the sound, be very careful. I have a mic on my collar. Can you hear anything? Well, to me, if you put the two engines side by side, and if I can recall the smoothness, the buttery smoothness of the 4-cylinder engine that was there on the previous Swift, there is a wee bit of a difference, but the difference is minimal, and you can really figure how much effort Maruti have put in to make this engine sound and feel as smooth as it does while it's idling. There is absolutely no vibration. In some 3-cylinder engines, you'll also feel a little bit of rocking as the pistons go up and down, but there is absolutely none of that here. The engine is very silent, very quiet, very refined, and you really cannot complain about it. Although, having said that, the previous engine was slightly more refined. So that has been answered, and now let's try and find out whether the tractability and torque claims of Maruti Suzuki about this engine are correct. So I am in the second gear right now, and pay close attention. I have taken my foot off the brake and the accelerator, and as you can see here on the meter, the tacho is sitting at about 600. I am bringing it down to about 500 rpm. Mind you, 500 rpm is very low. It's in second gear, and look at those speeds. It's doing sub 10 km/h speeds right now. It's doing about 8-9 km/h at 500 rpm, and it's not knocking. So it does have great tractability. Now let me move to the third gear and let's see what happens. Again, at 500 rpm, I'm doing 10-11 km/h, and can you hear any knocking? I cannot. I'm picking pace now, and this is the speed at which it feels natural. It wants to be at about 20 km/h to be at ease, but what I'm trying to say here is that it's not dying down even at 10-12 km/h while being in third gear, which means that the engine has a lot of torque at the bottom of the rev range, and I specifically asked for the manual transmission because I wanted to show whether the engine is really tractable or whether it's not. Another great thing is, let me put it in second again and let me try to make this engine stall. As you can see, I am going below 500 RPM now. It's simply refusing to die down. I'm also using the brakes. I'm feathering the brakes. The speeds are 5 km/h and this is refusing to die down. Any other car would have stalled. So the absolute bottom of the rev range tractability of this engine is pretty good, and I quite like it. So as we deduced, you can drive it at 10-15 km/h even in the third gear. Let's see what happens in fourth gear. And the moment you go to fourth gear, you realize that you cannot really use it as tractably as you were in the third gear, and you really have to give it some revs. So now, even though it is still operating at sub 500 RPM, you can hear some knocking. I'm pretty sure that you are able to listen to some knocking, as I am too, and you'll have to definitely take it above 20 km/h. But this is mind-boggling. It's 20 km/h in the fourth gear. There is some knocking, of course, but I'm in the rough. And what I'm trying to say here is that if you're going to be using this car within the city, which you are going to for the most part, this is going to be a great city car. The tractability is really good, and while the performance may have been affected, we'll see whether it has been or whether it has not been, but the tractability is really good. Now I'm really talking about really low speeds and really low revs. We'll take it up a notch as well, but before we do that, what I also want to tell you is that the mechanical clutch on the previous Swift has been replaced with a hydraulic clutch, which means that the clutch is smoother, lighter and easier to operate, which means that within the city it would be much easier to drive. The slick shifting gearbox of the Swift has not been transformed. It's pretty much the same, and you'll enjoy the slick shifts, the really light and precise shifts of the Swift that you have been enjoying all these years, and together it really makes it a very easy car to drive within the city, very enjoyable, even if you are not using the AMT. So for those of you who don't want to be driving an AMT, the manual 2 would make for a perfect city car. So refinement is pretty good, and the tractability claims are also pretty true. Now let's see how well this car performs in terms of its 0 to 100 acceleration. We are on the topic of comfort. I also want to really compliment Maruti Suzuki for the kind of work that they have done with this suspension. By far, this has to be the most well sorted suspension within its class. The suspension travel has gone up by 10 mm. They promised me that you'll realize that the handling part of the car has not been affected. It's not deteriorated because of the comfort that has been enhanced. And must I say, they have done a mind-bogglingly good job. The car feels like it's floating over even rough surfaces. As you can see, we are in the rough, we are not on a road, and I can really nonchalantly drive over rough surfaces and I don't feel anything. It's really nice. I've been driving this car all day long on the road, over the joints on the bridges, over bad surfaces, over speed breakers. There were a couple of railway crossings as well, and everywhere when I consciously put my mind onto how it felt when it went over those surfaces, it really amazed me. This suspension has to be one of the most comfortable, one of the most compliant, and I absolutely love it. You really got to test drive this car to figure how comfortable and how beautifully sorted it is. And not just is this cushy, while right now I am in the rough, I've been driving it, as I mentioned, on the road as well, and on the road also it comes across as a lively car, and I'll talk more about it. Let's in fact get onto the road and talk about it as we hit the highway. Also about the sound, It feels quite refined, but after 3000 RPM, you can feel the 3-cylinder hum. Just listen to it. After 3000 RPM. There. Now it can be sporty or it can be noise to you depending on the kind of person you are. For me, after 3000 RPM, especially if you're in the third gear, it feels like a reasonably sporty sound. It can be a little bit of noise for you, but all engines do make noise after 3,500 RPM. But to my ears, it sounds reasonably good. It's not noisy. It is smooth for sure. It's not rough. That's definitely for sure. And let's now hit the highway. Now, while I talked about its capability to handle rough surfaces, the ground clearance also is commendable, and while going over even vicious speed breakers, you won't really have to break a sweat. It's really capable in terms of the clearance, and it handles bad patches in a nutshell very well. Now, about the speeds in gear, in the first gear you'll be able to see 45 kilometers per hour on the speedo, in the second gear 85, in the third gear 130, and in the fourth gear you'll be able to witness 160 or thereabouts. Top speed obviously you cannot test in these conditions, but now as I'm driving it, let me also tell you the speeds that this does in various different gears, the lowest speeds that it can do. So in the fifth gear, if you're driving it without knocking, you'll be able to drive it at about 40. In the fourth gear, if you want to be driving it without any knocking at all, 30 is the ideal speed. In the third gear, 20 is the ideal speed, and in the second it can really go below 15 kilometers per hour. Tractability is fantastic. City driving is amazing. The 0 to 100 time of this car with 2 on board is a shade less than 15 seconds, and that should be useful to quite a few of you. But the real highlight of this car, as told to us by Maruti, was the fuel efficiency, and the fuel efficiency in the real world is really mind-blowing. And if you're driving it on the highway without pushing the pedal too much, if you're going to be driving at about 80-90 kilometers per hour without trying to be overtaking too many people too fast, it won't be too difficult for you to get about 23-24 kmpl on the meter, and that's a very good fuel efficiency for a car that offers a reasonable amount of performance. Within the city also, 15 kmpl, 15-16 kmpl is easily attainable, and in fact, if you're driving carefully where you anticipate your braking and the traffic is not viciously stop-start, where there are traffic signals and there is traffic, but you can drive at 50-60 kilometers per hour, then you'd be able to get better fuel efficiencies within the city as well. So the fuel efficiency of this car is indeed very commendable, and Maruti needs to be commended for offering something that the Indian customer demands, especially in this segment. Off to the performance then, and this is one area where my spirits have been slightly dampened, because this is obviously a naturally aspirated engine, and we like naturally aspirated engines when they are big. For the smaller naturally aspirated engines, when you try to give them the beans, they feel that they are struggling just a little bit. And now with this engine, I think that the sprightly nature of the Swift has been dampened just a little bit. That's my honest two-bit about this engine. I really think that the previous engine felt a little bit more sprightly, a little bit more sporty, and when I pushed the pedal down, while this engine is better lower down the rev range, when it swung past 2,500-3,000 RPM, that engine put a slightly bigger smile on my face. Now these are small engines and you cannot expect them to just shoot into the horizon. But having said that, while I don't have any problems with the smoothness, I think it's fine. Not as smooth as the 4-cylinder, but it's just fine. I don't find any problem with the smoothness of this engine. It could have been a little bit more sprightly through the mid revs. For example, right now I'm in third gear, I'm trying to overtake, and it takes some time before it builds momentum, and it's only after 3,500 RPM where the acceleration is really brisk and gives you the confidence to overtake at a fast pace. I would have wanted it to have a little bit more punch, and I think I'm a little bit spoiled, as I mentioned, because a lot of engines in this segment are now turbo, and when you go past 2000 RPM, turbo kicks in, you get that surge. So while this engine is linear, progressive, smooth, you really have to give it the beans and see the needle swinging past 3,500-4,000 RPM for that brisk acceleration and that overtaking maneuver. And that's my only complaint. But for all practical purposes, I think this is perfectly fine, unless you want to be going really fast, you want to be the fastest thing on the road. then of course it's going to be a little bit disappointing, but for most practical purposes, even as a city car or on the highway, this is just fine. But a sporty engine, this engine is not. It's practical, it's smooth, it's stocky, it's really usable, it's smooth, but I won't call this engine sporty. It's really efficient though, and I like it. I would recommend this car for everyone who wants a practical, smooth, refined, fuel efficient car. There is absolutely no flaw. But if sportiness and speed is something that you're looking at, if that flow of torque, that rush of power is something that you're looking at, then it falls short just a little bit. Limiter cuts in at 6,000 RPM. And one last question that you probably will have is the cruising speeds, and at 2000 RPM in fifth gear, you'll see 80 kilometers per hour, and you'll see 100 kilometers per hour in the fifth gear at about 2,500 RPM. About what I love the most about driving this car. Now, I remember the times when I drove the first Swift, and what I really liked even at that point in time was the steering wheel. It really was very communicative. You could really place the car very precisely, and it did not have that artificial heaviness or the pretense of being involving at that point in time. And I'm so glad to announce here that the steering here is very involving. I can drive this car all day long around a bend of ghats. I don't care about the power, but the involvement that the steering has really entices you, makes you want to drive it more. You can really place the car very precisely on the road, and it keeps you involved. For the enthusiasts amongst you, those who like the steerings to be very neutral, to be very neutrally weighted, not overly weighted, I really think Maruti Suzuki have done a fantastic job. And within this class, and even if I compare it with the Baleno, I think that the steering has a true feel, and it really brings a smile on my face. It may not have the kind of power that I would have wanted, but I really like how the steering behaves. It's just the right amount of involvement for this segment. About the ride quality, as I mentioned, it's very nice, very compliant, and as you can see right now, I'm doing triple digit speeds. The car feels very planted. It feels solid. It doesn't feel like it's wobbly. It doesn't feel like the ride is boat-like, and even when there are undulations on the road, it has a planted feel about it, very absorbent. And I quite like the way this car behaves even at speed. So it's a very good blend of good ride quality and decent handling, and it can be a reasonable bit of fun too, thanks to this beautifully set up steering wheel. Overall, from a driver's perspective, absolutely no complaints as far as the suspension, the steering, the ride quality, all of that goes. Power, I definitely could have done with a wee bit more. So all in all, there are no red flags, apart from one. If you're someone who's coming from an experience of the Volkswagen Polo GT TSI or some such, if you're looking for that kind of a performance, then maybe this car is going to fall short. But for all practical purposes, everything else, I am delighted. I really think that the fuel efficiency, the steering and everything else would really make it a very practical, fantastic, fabulous everyday car for a vast variety of buyers who are going to just love it. Now, various different variants of this car have various different features, and the salient features of all the variants can be seen on the slides of your screen right now. Finally, the one question that a lot of you would be wanting to ask is this or the Grand i10 Neos, and at this point in time, I can very clearly tell you the clear answer: this, not the Neos. Time now to get inside the car and see what all new features have been introduced and how good or bad the space is. Let's do that. So here is the key, and come on Maruti, I think you can do better. You have only these two buttons here and this Suzuki logo with this blue lacquer cover, but I really think that it looks a little too basic and can be a little bit better. Of course, you have this proximity sensor. You don't have to take the key out and open this door, and you'll be welcomed by a cabin which looks familiar and not familiar, with regards the fact that some parts have been taken from some other Maruti cars. Like for example, This AC panel here, you must have seen this on some other cars as well. This screen also, although the bezel is a little different, but the system is very familiar. But let's get back here again onto the door panel, where the plastics are hard but very durable and high quality. You have this pattern here, chrome door pull, and you have this dark grey insert. Only the driver's side window is auto down and up. Mirrors are folding and electric as well. You have space for a 1 liter water bottle and this map pocket. You have these soft touch materials here. This is all fabric, and you have some space for a wallet or some other item also. The speakers are covered by this rather interesting design. And now let's enter the cabin. The seat height is just about right for occupants of all heights. There is a height adjuster here. The steering wheel is the familiar D-cut unit that we have seen on other Maruti cars as well. And the instrument console, thankfully, is not all digital. I'm not very fond of the new age all digital instrument consoles. But the design is somewhat changed. You don't have that binnacle or the twin hoods that you had on the previous car. You have the tacho here, the speedo here, and if you look closely, you'll see that there's a sporty touch to the needles with the silver and red. And as you enter, you'll also listen to the sound that you just heard. Now, the bonnet opener and fuel filler cap are here. The fuel tank capacity is 37 liters. You have a dead pedal. The clutch here is now hydraulically actuated, which means it's lighter. Engine start stop button. The AC vents here now are horizontal. Earlier they were round. The screen was 7-inch. It sat here. It has been moved up. It's a floating type now. And the AC panel, which used to be rotary knobs, are now like this. The entire panel has been tilted towards the driver by 9 degrees. And the good thing is that you have all the information that you need here in this little 4-inch plus MID. Now, you need to understand that the fuel efficiency that you see here is not the fuel efficiency that you'll get. It's been idling here. The car has been idling all the while we were shooting. So this is not the real fuel efficiency. All the screens that you have, all the controls, including the cruise control, the volume, the mode, and call, reject, accept, voice commands. Then the new inclusion here is this wireless charger, which can accommodate a full-blown, full-sized phone. This is the OnePlus 12 Pro 5G, so it can accommodate full-sized phones. The twin cup holders have been increased in size so that you can put bigger cups as well. Then you have this piano black insert around the gear selector lever. Handbrake, of course, is manual. And the screen here is 9-inch Smart Play Pro Plus, which is a rather long name to remember. The IRVMs are not auto dimming. You still have to use them for day and night use. AC works really well. It's not a very hot day, but the AC chills in an instant, and I really like that. Now, the quality of plastics all around, of course, this is not a very premium car, so it's all hard, but it's all durable, and the fit and finish is very good. There are no inconsistencies, there's no creaking sound, there are no rattles coming in, and it looks like a car which has been built to last for a very, very long time. Now, just like the outside, the dashboard also has been designed in a manner where it wraps the occupant and it gives a very nice driver oriented kind of a look. You have this dark grey insert right here, and this pattern can be seen in various different places inside the car. Like you can see it here, the pattern is seen here as well on the rear door panel. So this is kind of a design highlight inside the car. The seat foam is reasonably firm. I have seen seat paddings, of course, which are firmer on more expensive cars, but the cushioning is reasonably good and you'll be very comfortable on long journeys. The seat squab is also pretty good. As you can see, me being 5 feet 10, it's covering my thigh rather well, and I feel properly cushioned. The bolstering is good, so the comfort along with the fantastic ride quality of this car is phenomenal. So if you're going to be riding for long distances, thanks to the light clutch and the fantastic light shifting gears, it's going to be an enjoyable, comfortable kind of an experience. You will also be able to use the connected car tech with this specific car now, and using Suzuki Connect, you'll have about 50 connected car features. So if you were missing out on the connected car features, now you have all of them. So that again is fantastic. The 6-speaker Archimate sound system here sounds really nice, and even at full volume you cannot see any aberrations, you cannot hear any distortions or a feeling that the sound is cracking. It gives you a very nice bass, and for those who like their music, I really think Maruti Suzuki have done a fantastic job. This is a nice sounding system and I quite like it. It does not come with an onboard navigation system, although you do get wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as well. The glove box is not too big, neither is it cool, but it's a reasonably sized utilitarian glove box that you have here. Shuts with a nice click. It doesn't feel flimsy like a few other glove boxes we have seen in this segment. Now, this pattern on the seat looks rather nice to me. It has been very tastefully appointed. I quite like the seat. The headrest is adjustable. And a very interesting fact here is that you have plenty of charging options. So you have this 12-volt power socket, a Type A USB which has been converted here into Type C, and then these two USBs, an A and a C, both are fast charging type. And the good part is that both the front passengers and rear passengers can use these USB sockets. So it's been put in very nicely and very intelligently. Now let's have a look at the resolution of the camera as well. And maybe this car could have had the 360-degree camera that you get on the Baleno, but it doesn't. Of course, this is a lower priced car, so that's okay. And as you can see, the resolution could probably have been better. This is not the highest of the resolutions that we have seen. It's a functional camera and it just about does its job. Now this free floating 9-inch screen is very familiar, and we know that it's very high resolution, very responsive to touch, and as always Maruti Suzuki have done a very good job with this screen, and we have seen this before, so it's one of the nicer units out there. Overall, the feature set here is par for course. I really think that it's well built, it's durable, it's neatly done. It's not the most premium interior that you have of the cars that are there in this segment and above, but it's very functional, and I really think that for the kind of money that you're paying, you're getting its worth. Let's have a look at the back seat also and see the features that we have there and the ones that are missing, and whether the space and comfort there are par for course. Let's get there. At the rear you have this child lock, and the layout is more or less as the front, but there is a key difference. You don't have the fabric and soft to touch armrest here like the front. Also, I think that the bottle holder here could have been bigger. This will not accommodate a fat 1-liter water bottle. Smaller bottles will go in, but I really think that this bottle holder could have been a little bit bigger. The seat height again is ideal for any height. Getting inside, you won't have your head banging. Knee room is sufficient. The front seat back is scooped out. Enough room for your feet as well. Thigh support is adequate for the class, and I think it's a comfortable seat. This is a segment which is not a very premium segment, and for this segment I think the headroom, the leg room, the knee room, all of that, the space is fine. There is no problem. A new inclusion here though is this AC vent, which was not there before, so that's something really nice. You have flow control, and as I mentioned, you have these two USB sockets as well, although you don't have any lights here. Also, what you don't get is an armrest, which I would have really liked to have here. So an armrest and a third headrest is missing, although the headrests for the rear two passengers are adjustable, which is pretty good, and the third passenger in the middle, if you want to seat one, will have a proper 3-point seat belt as well. Now, while you will be able to seat a third passenger here, it's not meant for long journeys, but having said that, this is a reasonably wide car, and if the 3 passengers are not very well built, you actually can accommodate 3 abreast here for short to medium journeys. You have this door handle, you don't have a coat hook though, and overall the ride quality here is fantastic. With the increased suspension travel, the ride quality on this car has really gone through the roof. It's one of the best riding hatchbacks, and even if you're sitting in the back seat, it really feels very comfortable, very plush, and even for longer journeys, the Swift feels like a car which is bigger than the segment that it belongs in. So a very nice back bench, although a few amenities are missing, seat recline, armrest, etc. But purely from a comfort perspective, from a ride quality perspective, there is nothing to complain about. Also, the space is adequate even for the taller ones amongst you. Now let's come to the part which a lot of you would be interested in, and that's the design. And Looks, as they say, are subjective. Now, the Swift has retained its essential visual character right from the outset, and it has not changed much ever through the 4 generations. And even now, the changes are evolutionary, they are not revolutionary. And you can see, it is very recognizable as a Swift. The key changes for me, personally, are that the headlights have changed and they don't go into the silhouette as much as they used to earlier. Similarly, the tail lamp don't protrude into the silhouette as they did earlier. There were some very prominent lines, organic lines around the front and rear haunches. They have been eliminated. And now what really defines this car is this line which simply wraps this whole car around. If you see, the bonnet also is a clamshell unit and you can see the shut lines very clearly. And if you take a full circle of the car, it wraps this whole car beautifully with this one line, including the tail lamps. And that's the defining part of the new design. Apart from that, as I mentioned, the bumper is new, the grille is new. I quite like the grille, save for the fact that with the absence of any chrome elements here, this looks like a big black blob to me, and I would really like to have a chrome element on the rim of this car. The good part here is that you have a projector lamp, you have this DRL, and you also have a fog lamp here, although there are no front parking sensors here. All in all, I quite like the new design, and as I mentioned, it's evolutionary. A few other things worth noting are that it's available in 9 colors. This is one of the 2 new brand colors. The other one is a red. 3 of these 9 are two-tone, like how you see it here. These wheels, 15 inches, the size remains the same, but the design is new, and the ground clearance has gone up by about 10 mm. That's thanks to the travel of the suspension that has also gone up by 10 mm, which in turn means that the height of the car has also gone up by 10 mm. Now, that brings me to the dimensions, and the wheelbase remains the same. The length has increased by 15 mm, and this is also a longer and wider and bigger car as compared to the i10 Neos. So it actually offers you more space inside as well. But talking about the space inside this car remains more or less the same as before, as the wheelbase has not changed. At the rear, you have this wraparound line that I talked about earlier on the boot as well. The tail lamp cluster, the combination tail lamp, is completely new. It has this light, the brake light, but a few elements here are still bulbs. So the reverse light is, as you can see, a bulb, and the indicator also is a bulb. You have the parking sensors here, and the rear view camera sits right here. You have a high mount stop lamp, rear wash and wipe, defogger, and of course there is this boot which is 265 liters in volume, 3 liters down, but that's not too much of a difference. The loading lip though has been brought down by 10 mm so that stuff can be moved in and taken out a little bit more easily. And as you can see, you get 60-40 split seats also, so you can extend your loading area if there is any need. And as you can see, you have 60-40 seats, which means that there is adaptability, there is flexibility, and if it's not 4 or 5 of you who are traveling together, you have even more space. And in fact, the rear bench can be completely folded down, and if it's only 2 of you traveling, then you can actually carry a lot of stuff in this car. Now, a lot of you are generally interested in the quality of the sheet metal as well, and rather the strength of it. So as you can see, I'm leaning against it and there is no problem. So the strength of the sheet metal has been increased, but you should understand that it has no bearings on the safety ratings of a car, because this is just the skin, and this car has received a 4-star safety rating in Japan NCAP. The B NCAP test ratings of this car are impending. We have not received them yet, but Maruti Suzuki is confident that this is going to score very well. In terms of safety, this gets 6 airbags as standard. It also gets a lot of other safety features as standard. It gets traction control, ESP. It also gets a 3-point seat belt for all the passengers. It also gets a seat belt reminder. So all of those are really good things to know, and we really hope that this car scores really well in the Bharat NCAP crash test ratings. So as you saw, Maruti Suzuki have done a fantastic job of bringing to life the Swift in its 4th generation, and as things stand, there is no better hatchback that you can buy in this specific segment. Mind you, I'm not talking about the bigger hatchbacks like the Baleno and the more expensive ones, but if you're on a budget and if you're looking for the best hatchback in this segment, I really think the new Swift nails it. I really hope that you liked this video. If you did, smash that like button, subscribe to Motoroids, and until next time, this is your friend Amit Changani signing off. Rev hard, rev free. and drive safe.